East Fishkill had existed for many centuries, little changed by humans. The scenery was tranquil, the air was fresh, the water clean and free of pollution. The mountains were heavily forested, and large areas of the lowlands, although wet and swampy, were also covered with a canopy of trees. Many small streams crisscrossed the land, allowing the surface water to slowly drain into the larger creeks like the Fishkill and Sprout. For several thousands of years, only a few hundred Native Americans inhabited the area, living in small villages close to the creeks and growing crops. Then in the early 1700s, the first European settlers arrived and cleared the forest to build their homes and create fields. Eventually, hamlets were established, and up to the middle of the 19th century, these communities had made little negative impact on the environment. On Sunday afternoons and holidays, families would take a drive in a horse-drawn carriage and later in an automobile through the East Fishkill countryside and enjoy the bucolic views of roads lined by stone walls, fields of corn, and cows standing in water meadows. Life was peaceful, and the clean air and water made the town a very pleasant and healthy place to live. Half a century ago, IBM moved into the town, and many of its new employees liked what they saw in East Fishkill and decided to settle here. Thus began the demand for new homes and commercial buildings, and the conversion of productive farmland into building developments. Since 1960, the town has witnessed an unparalleled increase in population growth and home building. This growth has created environmental problems, transformed the rural scenery, and greatly added to traffic congestion. Sadly, this has begun to adversely change the features which had made the town so desirable. We cannot put back the clock, but we can slow it down in the future. 4 years ago, the newly elected town supervisor, John Hickman, discussed with other residents what might be done to save some of the open land and preserve the remaining visual beauty. Thus was created an open space preservation committee, and town residents were invited to participate. The first meeting, chaired by Marge Jackson, was held just 3 years ago. The mission of the committee is to identify land which might be considered worthy of protection from development, and to examine other ways of reducing the pressure on the environment. A community pays a high price for unplanned growth, which can lead to loss of open space, water pollution, traffic congestion, air pollution, loss of beautiful views, demand for costly public services. The results from a limited survey at Community Day revealed that residents are principally concerned that future open space projects should protect drinking water quality. This is understandable in view of the groundwater pollution caused by an IBM subcontractor and the more recent Hopewell Precision contaminated plume. Every new house built in town adds at least another 2 automobiles to our road system. One only has to try turning left out of the Hopewell post office in the late afternoon to appreciate the increase in traffic. Yet 4 major housing developments are either in progress or under review. The Four Corners development on Phillips Road, 264 homes. Toll Brothers Hopewell Glen on Fishkill Road, 290 houses. Hopewell Crossing in the centre of town, about 200 houses, and around Lake Walton, another 94 homes. These 1,000 homes will place additional environmental burden on the town. The result will be more polluted runoff from the roads, driveways, and lawn chemicals draining into Fishkill Creek. Rainwater will not be able to filter through the soil to replenish the aquifers. More cars will be pumping pollutants into the atmosphere, and there will be fewer trees to absorb the exhaust gases. The scale of these developments should be a wake-up call that we urgently need to retain open space. To begin the process, the town reviewed its inventory of properties and declared the 12.6 acres of wetlands along Palin Road as its first open space preserve. The town has also strengthened its definition of steep slopes and wetlands to further safeguard against groundwater pollution and hillside erosion. These steps have been at zero cost to the taxpayers. With careful planning, a relatively small property can give the illusion of unspoiled natural scenery. Driving along a treed section of Route 376, the passenger is unaware that hidden beyond the trees is a cluster development of townhouses. Further along the same road is Hopewell Gardens Apartments, but because there is a wide swath of grass between the converted J.C. Penney farm barns and the road, it provides an open and interesting historical vista. Contrast this with the view shed upon entering our neighbouring town Fishkill, going west along Route 84. The portal into this once historic township is now blighted by some of the ugliest commercial developments on both sides of the highway, the Gap Warehouse and the moribund Duchess Mall. If this is not bad enough, a drive along Merritt Boulevard, which is hemmed in by a continuous line of homes and tall apartments that extend up the hillside, will surely demonstrate that this is not the most picturesque example of urban development. New cluster developments clearly visible from the road have appeared all along the entire length of Route 52, from Brinkerhoff to the Beacon Line. Do we really want East Fishkill to go the way of Fishkill? This may be the best incentive for our town to preserve open space. Not all existing open space in East Fishkill can nor should be preserved. This is unrealistic, as it is equally unreasonable to expect owners of open land to just keep it for the benefit of all other residents. Taxes have to be paid on all land, and even farmland with an agricultural exemption is barely profitable. That same land, if sold for housing development, would be very valuable. A way has to be found to make it worthwhile for the owners to keep these open spaces. One arrangement is for them to sell the development rights and place a conservation easement on the property. The state, county, or town pays the landowner the difference between the development value and its value as open space. A conservation easement protects the property so that it cannot have houses built upon it and will remain forever open. Fortunately, 3 easements have already been established in the town. Elton Bailey's Silver Ledge Farm on Hosner Mountain Road. Kiwana Farm, further up the mountain, has an easement on many of its acres, and 30 acres of Mark Jordan's horse farm on Blue Hill Road are under conservation. These 3 properties are monitored by Duchess Land Conservancy, which annually inspects the lands to ensure the terms of the easements are being honoured. Another agricultural enterprise, Fishkill Farms in Wickerby, may be in the preliminary stages of applying for a conservation easement to preserve the farmland in perpetuity. Several studies have shown that typically for every tax dollar that comes into the town, a home residence eventually requires an outlay of approximately $1.20, whereas that same tax dollar from open land requires only 36 cents of services. This illustrates that open space not only has a beneficial impact on the environment, but surprisingly it is not a burden on local taxes. This may be our last chance to preserve and possibly improve upon the town's natural heritage by retaining rural views, protecting pure drinking water, and limiting traffic so that East Fishkill continues to be a desirable place to live for future generations. Please support your town's efforts to make this possible.